Good afternoon, Kelly. If you can hear me. There we go. Hello, everyone, and good afternoon. We're still admitting everyone here.
You. He ain't saying nothing, is he, Tracy?
All right, so I've got a couple people here that are unmuted. I'm gonna have to ask you to keep your app muted while we go ahead and go through today. But we will have a chance to talk. All right, so I'm gonna see, let me count everybody here. We still are waiting for a couple more to join, but it is time to get started. I want to see if I can grab this other machine. Okay. All right. So, afternoon. My name is Cole Worley, and I'm representing from the Hispanic Business Center, and I am going to be your trainer for today. So, before we get started, I wanted to ask if everyone could take the poll that just launched on your screens. So go ahead and take a moment to answer the question. Give you a couple minutes before see everyone's voting. Pretty cool, I can see how everything's going on here. All right, we've got a mix of everything. Looking for one more person. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and end the polling, but it looks like we've got a we've got a couple more people coming in. Welcome, newcomers. Welcome, newcomers. So on your screen is a poll. If you could take a moment and read through the answers and pick the one that's best for you. All right. Can everyone see this poll on their screen? It's a question. It says, what's your experience with Microsoft Word? Everything from first timer to a power user, and some people who just don't know how to answer, and that's totally acceptable. Notice that some people have joined twice, just like me. That's totally acceptable. If you have more than one screen you need to be on, I understand. But once everyone's in, and if you automatically get kicked out, I'll do my best to let you back in as soon as I possibly can. But it's one of the ways that we keep our rooms private is by having this waiting room. Okay. Now, I'm just going to reiterate it one more time that if you are joining and not speaking or do not have a question, please keep yourself muted. And if you do have questions, I will be opening a chance for everyone to ask questions. It would be best if people would raise their hands. You're probably wondering, how do I do that? Well, there's a couple ways. If you are sharing your video with the class today, that's wonderful. You're welcome to, but you're also welcome to keep it turned off. If you do have the video on and you wave a lot, there's a chance I'll be able to see you. So that's one way you can get my attention if you have a question. The other way is for everyone, not just those who have video, is the reactions button. You'll see it at the bottom of your screen. There's a little button that has a little smiley face with a plus on it and says reactions. If you click that, one of the biggest buttons on there says raise hand. And when you do so, I get to see that. That means it lets me know that you have a question. We'll take it from there. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and end the polling and share the results with everyone. Cool. All right. So what this means is that the majority of us have used it a few times or are pretty new to it. And then the other half have used it quite regularly in our power users, which is awesome. And I invite you guys to challenge yourselves to see if there's something else that I can bring about and teach you. But we also are going to make sure that those who have never used Microsoft Word have an understanding and can get started by using Microsoft Office, the whole suite today. So I did prepare a very tiny little PowerPoint just so that we can all see what's about to happen today. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And please make sure that you let me know if my screen is not moving quick enough. All right. By the way, you can now see the poll results. I'm going to go ahead and close it so it's out of view. All right. So welcome to the Microsoft Word workshop with Access Tech. And just so everybody is aware, I am actually using the Access Tech laptop that has been provided as part of this program, the iView. And it has got a wonderful screen, and this is all I'm doing. I actually have my regular computer on to the side of me over here, and that's just in case I have to reference something else. And it also shows me exactly what you can see, just to make sure that if there's something I mess up, I can make sure we're going to cover it. All right, so in this presentation today, or I should say workshop, we are going to go over that first little Zoom poll. Was one of the things we wanted to do. I wanted to see where we are and how we're starting. But also, if you haven't had the chance to set up Microsoft 365 for the first time, you might have to go through a couple more steps in order to get the licensing set up. So the way that Microsoft sets up their Office 365 program is that you are granted, in this case, a user with privileges or a license to use the desktop software. And those are the pieces of software that are installed on your machine. That's different than going to a browser and searching the internet and using something that is live on the internet that way. So we're talking about applications that are loaded onto our machines. And we'll go through how to get that started. But for the first time users, you're going to have to log in with the username and password that was provided to you. And then as that goes through, we will your license will automatically be applied to the Microsoft Office suite. So that's just in case you are a first-time user. All right. So we're also going to go over navigating the basic user interface of Microsoft Office and what that means. And we're going to uncover basically the logic and how Microsoft over the years has decided to organize the way that we can use the tools to do the things that we need to do. And with this, we're going to go over some basic concepts. It won't make much sense for me to go back and forth between a presentation. We're just going to go into Microsoft Word and we're going to work just like we're going to work on our desktops every day. But I do have a list of things that I make sure that I want to cover with everyone. And if there are questions, there is a chat feature. And you can get to the chat feature by clicking on the bottom. It should be on the bottom left of your screen, if you click the chat function and you do pose questions in there, that's probably the best way that I can see your question and address it as we go through. And if we're at a point where we have some extra time and we want to actually have a discussion about something, certainly we can definitely open the floor for that. All right. And I thought one of the things that we can create today that applies to virtually everyone in the job world is creating a resume. And Microsoft Word is an excellent application to create a resume. But we're going to do some other things first. So without further ado, how do you open Microsoft Word? Well, there's a couple ways, and that's just the way that Microsoft has designed virtually everything in their world. There's usually more than one way to do anything. And some super users, you might be pretty familiar with keyboard shortcuts, or you can customize them that way. But a lot of us will either go to our little start menu here and go ahead and wait for it to load and scroll through and try to find Microsoft Word. Well, that's certainly one way to do it. I've gone ahead and pinned it to my taskbar down here. But the easiest way to do things is just click the little search button, or if you have it always appear, then you can just start typing inside this little button. Waiting for mine over here. And you just type Word. And you see it appears, it's the first one, and I just press the enter button, or you can click it with your mouse, and it's going to go ahead and open the application. And if it's the first time you've ever opened any Microsoft Office suite, then you'll have to go through the whole login procedure. All right, we'd love your feedback. Well, we can give that back to them later. All right, so when you log in, or sorry, when you open Microsoft Word for the very first time, you're presented with a greeting, and it's going to ask you, what do you want to create? Well, there's so many things that you can do with this. One of the time-saving pieces that they try to help everyone with is templates. So if you click on more templates, I just want to give you a little flavor of what is available. And there are literally thousands upon thousands of pre-built templates of virtually everything. Now, I've recently searched for templates regarding resumes, so that's something that's up there. But you name it, they have it. And the easiest thing to do is literally just search for what you want to create if you wanted to go through the route of using a pre-built template. So if you are looking to build a flyer, just click the little flyer link, gives you an idea. And it can come up with some pretty interesting inspirational ideas and pre-built documents that all you have to do is go in and customize. That's one way to do it. Hi there. If you could mute your audio while we're going through the class, just because there's always going to be background noise, and unfortunately sometimes there's feedback as well, and that's never fun for anybody. All right, but when we talk about letters, they even have thousands of example letters that you can just use to basically steal the copy. So for example, a follow-up letter for a healthcare resume. That's very specific to the function. Again, there are thousands of these, and let's just go ahead and click on one, and we're going to use it as text. Business letter, simple. So I'm just going to press create, and we're just going to use it for the text, and I'll show you why later. All right, so what does this one say? It says, dear recipient, to get started, just tap any placeholder. All right, great. So I'm just gonna select this. And notice when I've selected it, there's a couple of ways because I want to copy this. So there are buttons under the home. I'm just gonna press copy, but we're just gonna leave that alone for now. What I really want to do is open the blank document. And this is what most of us are going to do when you open Microsoft Word. You're just going to go to blank document, and I just need to write. So I've been presented with a blank document. Now let's go over what everything is here. For the newbies, what we're looking at is a blue top menu. This is going to include your licensing and what account you're using to sign in for Microsoft Word. It has a general search field where you can search for things within the document or anything that you need to do that you just can't find the button for. This is your godsend. This is your savior right up here. So always remember search. Search for what? Search for anything. All right. Now this area here is what Microsoft calls the ribbon. And the ribbon will change. It won't always look the same. And what does that mean? Well, if I'm working with photos in a document, it's going to change contextually based on what I'm working with. Plus, the ribbon can be changed based on these tabs up here. So right now, because it's underlined, we're looking at the Home tab. And this has the most used functions throughout Microsoft Word. And admitting. All right, so insert. Just changing going to insert. So now you can see that the entire ribbon changes of all the things that you can put inside a document. Everything from tables to pictures, charts. You can even add in some very custom apps, online videos, links, comments, text box, equations, symbols. If you work in education and have to create math exams, for example, this is where you would create literally your math equation to make sure that it's formatted properly. The sky is virtually the limit when it comes to what you can put together in Microsoft Word. But I want you to recognize that ribbon changes based on the function, where this is the logic part of what it is. Now, I want you to see right now that we're looking at an absolute blank document. And I've already set up so that I can view the ruler. And I personally believe that the ruler is going to help us understand the scale of what we're looking at, because we all assume it's a piece of paper that we're seeing out this white box. But how big is this piece of paper? Sometimes it changes. If you're working on an envelope, obviously envelopes are very different sizes. So in order to show this ruler, what do? Well, if I think, all right, Microsoft, what's the logic behind I want to view a ruler on my screen? So let's go to the View tab, and then, oh, look, there's this entire section here called Show. So I can check or uncheck ruler. Now, it does use up some of our screen real estate. So if you're working on a very tiny screen, obviously you might not need it all the time. But there's also a keyboard shortcut, and it's Control-R. Well, it's Control-R on others' computers. Well, that's unusual. They might have changed it on, but it has been Control-R for years. Anyway, if you're in doubt, you can always just go up to the search field and type in ruler. So type in the word rule, and it says show ruler right here. You can click it. And that just toggles that little switch that we found under the view menu right there. So a little bit of backstory for me, but I am not normally a Windows user. I day-to-day use a Apple computer, and the software is like 98% the same. But when I'm doing training for people, I generally use Windows. But every once in a while, like the control, like on Macintosh or Apple computers, they have a slightly different thing, and it's called Command-R. But 98% of the time, they're identical. So if any of those come up, I'm sorry, we'll figure it out. All right, so back to understanding the layout. So we've got view, we've got the rulers. The other thing I want to make sure everybody knows is down here in the bottom right, and this is the zoom. So depending upon the size of screen we're working on, we may want to zoom in and see more of what we're working on at a time, and that all depends. Now, that is also different than changing the text. Now, here's something that even us power users probably don't even know all the time, but I just need to see some text on the page. So there's this cool little formula. It's almost like using Excel inside Word, but you just type in =, and lorem, open parentheses, and then how many paragraphs do we want? Let's just say 50 paragraphs, close the parentheses, and press return. or it helps when I spell it right. Lorem. There we go. So lorem ipsum is gibberish. This is just dummy text that we can use to format, change, and give us something to work around. Now, you can always copy and paste text in, and we're going to do that in a little bit later, but lorem is a great way to just visualize what's going to happen on the page. All right, so we have 50 paragraphs of lorem, and it's all pretty basic. Now, if we're going to go to the home menu, we can see what we're looking at. So we're seeing right here, this is the font section, and this is where you can change what the typography looks like. For the most part, we're going to keep it pretty simple today. And if we have time, we'll do some custom fonts that we find on the internet, and we'll go there. All right, so what can I do with this stuff? Notice that what I did here is I moved the cursor down, and notice the change of the cursor. So when it's in a pointer format, that means I can click to select. And I just left click with my mouse. If you're using your touchpad, that's just a single tap. Now when it goes into this cursor form, the I, it means I can click and select certain amounts of text. And going back and forth, you can see that it will select several letters to whole words if I move very quickly. And that just behaves differently. After I select something, you'll see that little pop-up tooltip. So select this, I release, and then right next to my cursor is this font styles menu item right here, just almost identically right out of the ribbon. So with this, I can quickly change the font size, and these are sizes in points, and you can preview it as you hover over. So that's one way to do it. You can also just press the increase incrementally button. And sometimes this is good if you don't know how big you need to make it. So I want it to be about a full line. All right, but that's as big as I want it. Now, I want to use this as like a title though. So how do I do that? Well, in this case, I have the ability to put my cursor at the end of the sentence, and there's a space here. And I can press the return button on my keyboard or enter. And that creates a separate line and a new paragraph starting below. So I have, and what I did just there is I double clicked one time, it selects one word, and I double click or triple click if you're already selecting on it, then it selects the entire sentence or the entire line. Now, what I've noticed is that this is still in the normal type of typography. It's a normal style. So if you bring your attention up here where my cursor is circling, this is the styles. Now, right here it says normal paragraphs. Remember from school, the little backwards P for paragraphs? Well, that means something still. And that is a normal template paragraph. And normal means a lot of things. There's a lot of little pieces that make up normal. And for those of us that have worked on documents that other people have created on different computers, and you try to make, you open it on yours and you try to edit somebody else's document, and you're wondering, why is the font different and how come the spacing is all crazy? Well, that's because somebody else's normal was different than yours. And the normal font template, or I should say the normal style template, can be different on each document, but you can also have multiple normal templates in use at any one time in a document. And that's where some headaches come in if you're working on rather lengthy documents that multiple people have contributed to. We'll get to that more in the future. All right, so we can also choose different types of styles. And this is like a whole selection of styles at a glance. So headings, another style of headings, and notice it changes the font color, it changes the font style, the size, and even the spacing around it. But I'm going to use title. And again, there are lots of these. And if you notice on these sections, every once in a while, there is a little flyout button. If I click this flyout button, it's going to bring up an entire pane of different examples of different preset styles. And this is designed to just save you time. So in this case, I'm just going to click title. Like, whoa, that's huge. Well, I don't know if I need it exactly that big, but let's go with it for now. All right. So if I'm here and I press return at the end of that sentence, notice how my return then goes back to normal. So I'm not always typing at this size. That's when we have different styles at play. Now that's different than, say, changing this normal area, and I'm going to make it, say, size 18 here. And I'm also going to press bold. Don't recommend doing this unless you're making an absolute shouting match of a point. But if I press return, you'll notice that the style continues. All right, so that's a different way to do it because now we've modified the normal style that's at play. Okay, so we're going over some of these basic text formatting and some line spacing. But let's go a little bit further. Now, notice that there's some odd spacing between the lines, and you might just think, oh, it's probably just single space or double space, right? Well, sometimes that's true, and sometimes there's a lot more at play. So there's a concept of before space and after space in Microsoft Word. So if we're going to adjust this, well, there's a couple ways we can do so. One way is to just put the cursor, the little blinking line, in the text that we want to adjust. In this case, it's a paragraph style. So we go over here to our paragraph pane in the ribbon. Remember, this is in the home tab in the paragraph section. This little guy right here, line and paragraph spacing. I'm just hovering over the button, and it's giving me a tooltip of what it is. This is a great way to learn what these little things mean. You just hover for half a second or more. It's going to tell you what will change and what does it mean to do these things. So align right, by the way, there it is. Control R, align right is now Control R in this version of Microsoft Word. Whereas on the version that's sitting next to me on the computer over here, remember it was essentially Control R is to show or not show the ruler. Anyway, Microsoft will do that to us sometimes, but that's beside the point today. I want to focus on the logic of where to find things and how to teach ourselves to continue to learn to accomplish the goals and tasks that we have in front of us. So if we click the button, now these are line spacing items. So we're changing the number of lines of spacing between each line in a paragraph. But there's sometimes add space before paragraph and remove space after paragraph. Well, what if we want to do more than that? Well, we click this little flyout and we go to paragraph settings. This is the master menu of all settings paragraph. And if we look here, we could see general, indentation, spacing. This is what I'm looking for. And this is the before spacing, it says 0 points. After spacing says 8 points. Well, considering that our text size is 11 points, that's almost a full line anyway. In this case, if I select it, and I'm just going to type 0, it can remove all the space after. And I'm just going to press OK. So notice that this paragraph now has no space after. And if I'm going to do it to a bigger selection, I'm just going to select a bunch more paragraphs. And I'm going to go up here and click remove space after paragraph. I'm thinking, well, I don't know about you, but that's not easier to read for me. So maybe there's something better we could do. Maybe that spacing after paragraph is a good thing. So let's go ahead and add it back in. Let's select our spacing, our paragraphs, and let's add space after paragraph. And you just click it, and it's going to select a rather comfortable amount of space after paragraphs. And that's how you can keep away, instead of typing enter, enter, and then more text, it allows for the control between paragraphs. And that's something that the pros do, rather than continuing to press return to add more and more and more space. Now, looking at this dummy document, well, I can't see it right now, but okay, it says I'm on page 1 of 3 and I have 940 words, and that the language I'm using is Spanish. Well, I think it's actually a fake version of Latin, but that's beside the point today. But that's interesting that it's 3 pages. Well, sometimes I need to just make space, and I'm here, but I want this paragraph to go to the top of the next page. Well, most of us would probably just go to this paragraph and press return until it gets down there. But now I have an awkward space up here, an actual carriage return that exists. Now, I'm going to undo that by clicking this undo button up here on the top toolbar. And yes, this is like a, oops, I didn't mean to do that button. So you literally just press undo, and it goes right back as if nothing happened. And the little button next to it shows you a list of all your actions, and you can go back quite far in case you have made a mistake that you just simply can't seem to recorrect. You can always backtrack your steps that way. All right, the keyboard shortcut for that also is, now this should be true, but it's Control-Shift-Z. That's or Control-Z, depending on the application. All right, so truthfully, what we need to do is actually what's called inserting a break. So why it's called that, that's just the logic behind it. So we're going to go to the insert tab of the ribbon. Notice everything changes. Now, how do I make space? I want to give it space so that it goes to the top of the next page. Well, that's literally called a page break. So in this case, our menu says pages, but I'm going to click down there on the little arrow, and it says blank page, page break. Well, this is exactly what I'm looking for. So I'm just going to press page break. And now the paragraph goes to the top of the next page without pressing return. And that means that as this document evolves and other people might edit it, this section will always, this paragraph will always start at the top of this page, no matter how much more text gets put in here. So as a piece here, I'm just going to say, well, let's just add more type. And in order to avoid using the paste, let's try that cool little function again. Lorem. Let's add 5 more paragraphs. Press enter. And now we've got 5 more paragraphs and then a page break. Notice that? So if I zoom out, you can see that this whole page, the rest of the page is now blank, and this will always start at the top of the next page. So that's a convenient way to have a deliberate end of a section and begin again. All right, so going back to the very top of the document, I'm going to zoom back in a little bit. So if I click on this, I can see, all right, well, I want to go with page width. That's usually comfortable for me, so let's go there. Boom. Now that's very easy for me to read. And I can see that my margins are set with about 1 inch here. And I've got another inch on the other side. Go. All right, I just want to check in with everyone. How is it going? I want to pull up my participant list, and I want to ask here if anyone does have a question or a chance to raise their hand. Now's the time to do so. Otherwise, you can give some smiley faces or whatever you might want to do, just to let me know that things are going okay. or if I have to backtrack, I got 1 thumbs up. Thank you very much for finding the reaction button down there. It's going to be at the bottom of your screen on slightly on the right side. All right. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to reiterate what we're doing. Otherwise, we're going to continue on. All right. Cool. Okay. So let's just start over. Let's create this letter that we were talking about. So I'm just going to say file, and I'm going to make a new document. I'm just going to press the new button right here. Again, it's giving me all these options for templates, and they're great sometimes, but let's just again start with a document. All right, so here we go. Now, if you remember earlier, I copied some text from a letter. Now, to paste it, I've got a couple options. Copying and pasting is probably one of the most common things you'll ever do on a computer or even a smartphone. Now, to do it in Microsoft Office, they are again giving you like 3 or 4 different ways to do this. One way is to right-click, or if you're using your touchpad, you can click with 2 fingers. Now, it gives you this edit menu, or you can call it the right-click menu, and it's giving us paste options. So, wow, and it's also giving us the preview. So notice that the tooltip is telling us a couple different things here. It says, use destination theme. That's meaning, remember we talked about styles? Well, that means it's going to use the existing style. Or keep source formatting, and notice how it looks a little bit different. That means wherever I copied this text, it's going to use the same format. Now, you saw me copy this out of a different Word document, but sometimes you're going to be copying text out of a website. So in that case, yes, there is formatting from websites too. And if you've ever tried copying and pasting text from a website and had issues with it, well, this is exactly how you can manage it. There are other ways, and you can merge formatting. Now, sometimes the results of this can be a little funny because it determines what should be brought over and what shouldn't. Or you can just say, keep it clean. And that's what it says, text only. So in this case, let's do keep text only. All right, boom. So for example, if we went to a website, I can show you real quick. I've got a couple web pages open.
Huh?
Hi there. All right. And if you copy this text, for example, and I'm just going to press right click, and now it says copy, but it also gives me the little tooltip right here, which is Control C. So I'm just going to do that. And if I go back to Microsoft Word, one way to do so is you can minimize it, or I can click down here. I can see my little Microsoft Word, and it shows me the open documents I have going on. But my personal favorite is I like pressing the keyboard shortcut Alt-Tab. So Alt-Tab, and if I'm pressing and holding the button Alt, I can see all the windows that I have open right now. So in this case, we want to go back to the document 1 Word. So I click that. Now we're back at the document. And just to illustrate the example of what happens, again, I'm going to add a new page to the document. So I'm going to go to Insert menu, and I'm just going to say Page. And I'm going to add a new blank page. And that new blank page gets added. Actually, I think I clicked the wrong document. Word document 3 is what I meant to go to. So go to Insert, Page, blank page, and I'm going to press Control V, which is paste. Now, notice how it looks just like it did on the website. And I can press Alt-Tab, and by pressing Tab again, I can cycle through the open windows. Now, this is what it was. Look at that. So let's go back. Simplifying, yes. So in this case, it looks identical. Well, and it's not exactly what I wanted to do. Now let's go to right click. Now I right click where my cursor is, and I just want to paste text only or source formatting. You can see how the differences change. In this case, keeping the text only. And that's what it looks like. All right. Oh, only because I just saw it and it's right here. Notice the little double, and again, if I stop moving my cursor, it tells me if you double click, you can hide the white space between pages. Sometimes this is useful when you're working on very long documents. This doesn't happen to be one, but it is a very convenient piece. All right. Okay, so I don't really need that. Instead of deleting it, I'm just going to press back again, and I'm going to undo the adding the page. All right, so let's work on this letter. Okay, so if we're making this look like a very, I see there are chats now. I'm glad to get the comments here. Appreciate you guys. I see that. Oh, Catherine, we might have to follow up later about the Zoom part, but I was just using the text as an example. And Bernard, I'm glad the page break was useful for you. If anyone else has comments or questions, really appreciate you guys putting them in here. And every once in a while, I'll notice that there's a new one waiting for me. All right, moving on. So we've got this basic template of a letter, if you will. So I want to see more of it. So I'm going to zoom out just a little bit. All right. So let's see. I want it to look a little bit more formal. So I'm going to change the style. So I want everything to be normal. Here's another shortcut, and it's Control A. So Control A automatically selects everything within the editable area. And this is true on many, many applications. It's the same thing as if I went to get the end of the document, pressed, clicked, and dragged the entire document all at once. But if I had a 20-page paper that I was working on for a college report or something, and I just needed to change everything all at once for whatever reason, I can just press Control A and I will automatically select everything in the document. So here I have normal, but let's go ahead and let's select something else. Depending upon your version of Microsoft Word, you may or may not have more pre-built styles drawn in. So if we go to the Design tab, this is where we can find other types of themes that are at play. So in this case, we can go find one of our other ones. This one looks more entertaining. So let's click this theme. All right, let's go back to our home tab on the ribbon. And we notice we still have Calibri as our default body font. Now, there are many different types of font. And if you could mute your video, thank you very much. It'll be on the bottom left of your screen. There we go. Thank you very much. And okay, so we've got our text selected, and we're going to change the font. And Arial Nova Light. It's a round one, but let's look at a serif font. The easiest way to do it, if you know what you're looking for, is to just type it in. I'm just going to say Times. It goes to Times New Roman. This has got to be the most basic of classic text fonts there is. And they call it a serif font because of those little pieces that are at the end, beginning of each stroke of a letter. Like it's the fancy part. So it has a serif, and that's what they call the little fancy part, serif. Sans serif is Latin for not including. So not including a serif is an example of Calibri, which is what we were just looking at and is what you would consider most type, modern type to look like. So if we want something to be a little bit more formal and easy to read, we can many times open up the this text. And yes, there is a way to make the font the default. Now, we can make the default for one document, or we can make the default font forever on our machine. So every time that we create a new document, the default font has already been set to something different. So in this case, let's do that. So our size is size 10. Now, you might remember from school, schools usually require size 12, but notice I just changed nothing. That's because I only changed where the cursor is rather than the existing text. So I select all again, size 10, change it to 12. Let's say we want to make this the default font. Well, the easiest way to do that is to open the font flyaway, the full menu. This is where everything font exists. Now we have here the font type, the style, we've got regular, our size, the color is automatic. That's usually good for our circumstances. We can even change the font effects. And now here we are as set as a default. This is the button we're looking for. So set as default. Now it asks me for this document only or all documents based on the normal template. Now again, here's that concept again, normal template. Well, normal is just for us, and somebody else's normal is obviously different. Doesn't that apply? So this document only, let's just do it there. So now this document's normal template has been changed, and you can see that right here. It no longer shows Calibri. That's how we make that change. I hope that was helpful. All right, so if I'm going to format this piece, you're most welcome, Lamard. All right, so if we're going to format this piece to make it look like a professional letter, I don't necessarily want it to look so short and just at the top of the page. So let's add some space at the top. We need to change the margins. If you're viewing the ruler, well, it's pretty easy. I can actually just click when my cursor turns to a double-sided arrow, vertical, and if I hover and don't move, it says top margin. So I click, I get the little line that shows me across my page where my top margin is. And if I click and drag, I can change where this margin goes. Hey, that's pretty cool. So now I have made the top margin very, very large. The other way I can do it, I believe, is we just right click. Well, this is for the header. Sometimes, well, they might change that again on me too. Well, forgive me, but there are other ways that you can change your margins. And when in doubt, you just type in margin. So we can do adjust margins. Now, this is a button that is located inside the ribbon. Well, that's probably going to be under where? Yeah, layout. So if we go to the layout tab of the ribbon, here we can find our margin, page orientation, the size of our page. So we can actually choose different pages sizes. We have the European sizes, and we've got the American sizes right here. We can even work on legal documents. All right, so in our case, we want to adjust the margins. Now I just clicked on the button and we have our choices. Well, obviously I just clicked and dragged from the ruler, so that made everything a little bit unusual. In our case, oh, and you can see the old Microsoft default if you wanted to go back in time and just remember what that was like. In our case, let's try wide. Wide looks kind of fun. So we've got our wide margin. This looks kind of formal, but I still think I like my top margin to be pretty big. So in this case, I can just go down to custom margins, click the button and I get the full page setup area and adjust my margins. And really, I think I want a 2.75 inch margin. I'm gonna press tab. And now my little preview page shows me at the bottom, I only have an inch. Well, I think I want 1.5 inches down there. And I have 2 inches left and right. I still want my portrait page. And guess what? Set as default. Here it is again. So I'm going to set this as default. So I'm going to set this for all pages on the normal template. But just because this is computers being shared with many people, I'm going to say no, and I'm not trying to aggravate them and make every time they open a document look very strange. All right, so in this case, press OK. Now we have a somewhat centered letter. That's pretty cool. Cool. All right, so now we have city zip code. I kind of wish this was already put there, but let's say I want this to be right justified. I want to put this on the right side of this, excuse me, the right side of the page. Well, how do I do that? One way to do it is to right click over the highlighted text. And I can actually sometimes change this right here, but it's not giving me because contextually it's not set up. But by right clicking it, I can say paragraph and I can open this menu and say, oh, okay, general alignment. Yes, that's what I want. Alignment left. Let's do right. And now you can see the example is it put it way over here. I'm going to press OK. Bingo. So it now becomes right aligned. Well, this is cool, but let's say that we want to add something totally different here. Let's say that we need to add another address. Well, we can do this by adding a text box. So it's not adding a text box, it's inserting a text box. So we go insert, and when we go over here, we have our text insert functions right here. And the most common one and the most useful is text box. So I'm going to click it. Cool. Now it brings up this menu. It shows me all different types of text boxes that we could possibly add. And there are so many in here. And as I scroll, it's downloading more and more from the internet. So in this case, simple text box is all I need. So I'm just going to click that. Whoa, what did I just do? It's a text box in the middle of my document. That's not exactly what I had in mind. But okay, so what I have going on here, and notice there's also a new little piece on the screen, and that is the anchor. Now, even us power users may not be familiar with anchors in the modern version of Microsoft Word, but an anchor means where your inserted elements are anchored. And that means if you are to select a whole bunch of text and you're wondering, oh, I didn't highlight that. Why is it highlighting whatever is in the middle here? Well, that's because you're highlighting the anchor. That is what's happening. So to forgive this issue and to make sure that you don't have issues with anchors in the middle of documents, if I'm going to make this our return address, I'm actually going to just move that anchor. Right now I have to select my text box. I'm going to move my anchor all the way to the top of the page. So now if I select this, I am no longer selecting the information inside this text box. And this applies to many things. Could be a picture too. So now the anchor is far away. And to view the anchor, you have to hover over so it looks like this is what's called the move cursor. If you click when you have the move cursor, you can then see where the anchor lives. Okay. Now, what also shows up here is our layout options. Now, I don't want this in the middle of my page, and I want to be able to move it anywhere I want it. And yeah, I can move it around here, but I want to put it way up in the top left, but it won't really let me do that. And that gets very frustrating. if I click on this little button right here, layout options, it gives me the text wrapping options. Now, it also shows me right here, move with text or fixed position on page. Well, this is what becomes pretty darn useful. Now, these are text wrapping options. So through option, we have top and bottom, we have behind text, and we have in front of text. In this case, I'm just going to say fixed position on page, and I am going to not have it square word wrapping, but I am going to move it to in front of text. All right, so in a fixed position on the page. I'm going to close this little menu. Now look, now it looks like I have my document way down there. And see the anchor? Well, it doesn't matter where the anchor is because now I can move this anywhere I need to. But let's at least make this an address. So we have our name, our street, and city, state, and zip. Okay, that's cool, but that's still not exactly how I want it to look. Now I could also move it way over here because I can put this anywhere on the page that I want to. I can also resize this. All right, but there's still this awkward space between all the lines. Well, it's not because it's double spaced, it's because there's spacing behind or after the paragraphs. So I'm just going to remove space after paragraph. Cool. So now everything's a little bit closer together. It's size 12, and I'm going to shrink this up a little bit more, but I don't like this line. Let's get rid of the line. All right, so to get rid of the line, I want you to notice that we have a new tab. Yeah, it's in blue. Anytime that a contextual menu will appear in your ribbon or a tab in your ribbon, it shows up in blue. So let's go ahead and click this new one. It says format. All right, wow. Now this is a whole bunch of new stuff that didn't exist when I was just editing text. So what I'm doing now is editing this object, and this object happens to be a text box. So to edit this line around it, well, I need to change the style. So right here it says shape outline. I'm going to click this and I'm going to say no outline. But look at all the cool colors I can choose. No, I just want no outline. I want it to look like a part of the rest of the document. So I click no outline. And there we go. Notice that the outline is now in the little itty bitty dots. Cool. All right, now this is starting to look more like a more professional letter, perhaps to you, but it's a good sample document. All right, so now we've created a text box, and perhaps let's say that we want to add some more jazz to it. Let's say, all right, let's add a logo over here. Now let's go to insert. And it doesn't say logo, but in this case, our logo is a type of picture. So let's insert a picture. And it brings up my Windows file menu. And in my case, I know that I have everything already set up in this Access Text folder. So it's showing me all the different files that I can possibly put inside this document right now. And I'm clicking on this Access Text logo. Now in this case, it says all pictures. This is the file types. Now let's go ahead and press insert. Whoa, isn't that a little big? So it also came from the web, so it also includes some alternative text for example, like visually impaired people, they can listen to what this picture is about. So in this case, I'm going to do exactly the same thing. But first, I'm going to change the size. And I change the size by dragging the corners. Notice that I didn't grab the middle, because guess what? That's not allowed. And if you had something round, it would very clearly become an oval. So if you do this, you're usually in violation of somebody's rules of logo usage. So in this case, I'm just going to press back and undo, and I'm going to go ahead and make it smaller. But again, I'm still stuck at this. It's attached to this line right here. So I'm going to undo that. I am going to make it in front of text. Now that looks a little bit better. And now it still says move with text, but I want to fix it on the page. All right, great. So now I'm going to put it right up here or pull it way over here on the right. Cool. Now this area right here also doesn't need any space after the paragraph. Cool. Now also for this one, I want this to be a little bit lower, but in this case, I just want to increase the space before that one. Oh, there is a line above there. So in this case, it did like it when I pressed that, but add space before, good. All right, now it did it. So I've added a little bit more space before. Now we've got our how we added our picture. Now notice that when I select this text box, I get the format menu and I get text styles. But now I'm going to click on the logo picture. And now I get format again. Now it's all about photo formatting. So in this case, I can change the color. Let's just make it black and white. There we go. It's all gray tone, grayscale now. So again, if I click on this box, I click on the format tab, it's giving me textual formatting. If I click on the picture format, it gives me photo options. And here's that text wrap and positioning that we've been adjusting. All right. How are we doing so far, everyone? I want to just do a little quick check-in, see how people are doing, because I'm talking a lot. And normally I like these things to be way more interactive, but we've got so much ground to cover. And I want to make sure that everyone's having a chance to learn something. How's my pace? Am I talking too fast? Is this going too slow? Now's your chance to give me some feedback. Go ahead and put it in the chat. Going to go ahead and open up and read it here. All right. Elaine, Lamar, thank you very much. Anyone else have anything to add? And there is no problem if you need me to slow down. That is totally acceptable. I'm trying to keep like a medium pace here. All right. Thank you, Nathaniel. Good. All right. Appreciate the feedback, and think we can get to our resume. And our resume is going to be way more complicated because I think we're going to use a template. Might as well start with something that already looks good. So let's see what that's like. All right. Let's see. Are there ways to save these settings? Sorry, I'm watching the chat. Lamar, I'm not sure exactly which settings you're referring to. Oh, I'm so sorry. It's not Nathaniel. It's Nathal. Is that correct? I apologize if I mispronounced, but that is definitely my error, and I did not mean to do that. All right. And hard copies of this session, this is being recorded. You will have access to this after the fact. So you may rewatch it at any time going forward. But we're going to be going over a whole bunch of different items from Microsoft Office over the next 2 weeks here. So you get me twice this week and twice next week, I believe. And we're going to be covering not just Microsoft Word again, but how Microsoft Word interacts with some of the other Office products. We're going to get into the communications part of Microsoft Outlook and Microsoft Teams. We'll do that together. We're also going to work on Microsoft PowerPoint and what that could be good for, and how to build presentations, as well as compositions, as well as Microsoft Excel. And Excel happens to be one of my personal favorites because it can do so much for business. But I'm also really curious to see where everyone is and their experience with the other Office tools. And that's why we're starting with Word, because it's the most common. Generally, it's the most easy to understand. But again, they try to make everything very intuitive. So once you connect yourself to the Microsoft logic and you think, well, how would Microsoft say this? And how would Microsoft want me to do something? How do I add this or move that or make it look this way? That's what I really want to drive home using Microsoft Word and the rest of the Office suite, because that will allow you to teach yourself. And once you can do that, you're going to learn so much more so quickly. And if anything ever frustrates you when you're using Microsoft Office, like, why is it doing that? I would say there's more than a 99% chance that somebody else has had the exact same problem that you have had. And all you have to do is search for the problem or search for the solution. So in that case, you can start by going to a little search tab up at the top of every Microsoft Office application, or we go consult our good friend Google, because the internet is full of advice. Whether we want it or not, it's there. And fortunately, when it comes to using software we don't know very well, they have lots of different places where we can learn. But this is live. I am here for you. My goal is to help each and every one of you, increase that little mark of saying, you know what, I learned more today than I knew coming in. And by the end of this couple weeks, I want you to be able to say, you know what, I got this. Or if you already had this, I want you to say, oh, you know what, I learned a couple things that totally can save my time. So yes, or join this workshop. Thank you, Lamar. All right, now getting back to making a resume. Or you know what, I can actually just ask people here, do we want to work on a resume, or is there something else like a report or a long document that requires what do you call it, table of contents or something like that? I mean, what would the audience like to learn next? Because we have just under an hour, and the next document is probably going to take up most of that. So in your chat box, if you have an idea of like, oh, I wonder how they make this, well, ask me and let's see if we can do that right now, because I'm here for you and I'm going to help you do the work that you need to do. And think of me almost like as a consultant that way. In fact, that's kind of what I used to do with Microsoft Office. I used to go around and help people do their own jobs with Microsoft Office. No, I didn't do their work. They would say, hey, I'm working on this. How should I use Excel to do this easier? And I said, okay, well, here's how we can structure it. And we go in and we do that. So if you have questions like that, I love them, and I will do my best to accommodate your questions and the work that you have in front of you. But if we don't have any other ideas, I'm going to go back to a resume, because we all have worked with resumes at some point. All right, I'm not seeing anything in the chat, so we're going to go back to resumes. Okay, bullet points. All right, well, we can address the bullet points in the resume because that will certainly apply. And we're also going to add on a couple other very fancy features when it comes to modifying. What do you mean by letter point? Curious. I'm not exactly sure what that means. Oh, yes. Okay. That's a numerical list. So letter point, that threw me off, but this is also how we start to get in tune with the way that Microsoft talks and thinks and works things. So this is a great example because there's nothing wrong. Yeah, it's a letter point. Yeah, that's how you start with it. But at the same time, what does a computer think it is? Well, sometimes computer software thinks it's called an ordered list. And an ordered list can have many different things to start with. They can be bullets, they can be numbers, they can be letters. It's essentially an outline with a hierarchy. Well, good news is Microsoft Word can handle all of that. In fact, if you're writing a really long document, you're going to have lots of these. And if you remember from school days, depending upon when you went through school, I know my parents, they did not have computers, but they did have those typewriters that were called word processors. Well, Microsoft Word is the evolution of the word processor. And yes, I am not that old. I definitely learned in school with computers, and mostly Macintosh computers, believe it or not. But they're virtually the same. You can walk back and forth between them these days. But let's get into the resumes, and we can talk about the ordered lists and how to format them. But before we do that, only because you asked the question right here, if we're going to add an ordered list, we can create a new paragraph and say, I want to show you 5 things. All right. And I'm going to end it with a colon, and I'm going to press return. And what's really cool about Word is that if you just start typing and you type the number 1, and I'm going to give it a little space. Whoa, did you guys see that? Did you just see what happened? I'm going to zoom in and do it all over again for you. All right. All right, so I'm going to go back. All right. I want to show you 5 things. Press return. There, what? Press return. I type the number 1. I'm going to show you the first thing. I press period, space. Whoa. It automatically knew that I was starting an ordered list. That's the evolution of word processing. And if I want to see what's going on here, it shows me an autocorrect. So what did it just do? It automatically corrected to creating a numbered list. Cool. So I can say first thing, and I'm going to press enter again. Whoa, there it is, number 2. Second thing, again, third thing. And sometimes oh my goodness, sometimes I'm really bad at spelling. If you haven't seen these little squiggly lines before, this is an example of checking the spelling as you're typing. And personally, I don't think I would survive or be taken seriously in this world if I didn't have spell checks. It's somewhere. As good as spelling as I tried to be in school, it definitely has saved my career many times. All right, so let's address the spelling. All I do is hover over it and right click, and right at the top of this contextual right click menu, it says spelling. It says sometime, all right, or sometimes, occasionally. Well, I'm going to click sometimes. Fixed. All right, so now sometimes. Okay, oh, you know what? The first thing has a lot more to give. So actually, I'm going to go up here, press return again, and it creates a new number 2, but I'm going to use a cool nifty key called the tab key. It's just to the left of the letter Q. Press tab 1 time, boom. And you see what happened there? I want to draw your attention. I'm going to go back. So pressing tab on this line, it created a new schema, meaning it no longer is creating a number 2 on the second line below, but it reordered so that the ordering stays intact. And now it's an A. So now I'm just going to write gibberish, some more gibberish, and some more gibberish. Okay. Now, you know what? I can do that again. And it does it again and again and again. All right. I know Lamard's impressed. I hope, if anyone else has these types of questions, I am happy to indulge and address and help everyone here. But Lamard, I appreciate you asking, and your questions are wonderful. So if anyone else would like to pipe in, I am all yours. Okay, so that is how ordered lists occur, how you can type them out. Now, sometimes we get these things and we just have to format them. So in this case, I'm going to select it all, and I want to remove all of this formatting. Now, how do I remove all this formatting? Well, there it is. You see that? I hovered over normal. So I've selected all, and I go to styles, and I'm just going to click normal. All right. Now that's my list. So I could just type it out really fast, but now I need to make it a list. So to turn it back into a list, I'm going to select it all, and I'm going to click this fancy little button like right here. It says numbering, create a numbered list. Now there's also a little caret next to it. I'm going to click that, and it shows me all different types of lists that I can create with all different types of number formats. So I can do number with a period, number with a parentheses. I can do letters the same way, capital, lowercase, Roman numerals. All right, so let's, by the way, and you can define a new numbering format. You can literally type anything you want. So let's just do this one. It sounds kind of fancy. First, second, third, fourth. Wow. All right. So we've made that kind of numbered list. I honestly don't know when I've seen this used, but I'm using it because it's an option. All right. So now I want to make sure that this one's really not the second. This is actually something else. I want to draw your attention to my cursor. Now, when I'm over the text, it shows this cursor eye. Well, if I move it, now here's that special line right here. I move it into the margin, and it changes to a backwards looking cursor, basically. See, now notice that up here it faces one way and it faces another way down here. That means something. It just means that it's still going to act like a clicker. Like when you click something, it's going to click what is below it or next to it. All right. So in this case, we have second, and I'm going to click the second row. I clicked with my left finger. This is like one tap on the pad here. So in this case, all I do is click one time, and I've selected the entire row or the entire object to the right. So this works on either side of the margin, the left side or the right, but it'll select all of that. And if I click and drag, I can click and drag multiple lines at a time. So I know that these first three need to be indented. They need to be not on the first level, but on the second level. So I can do that with my decrease and increase indent. So in this case, the little arrow to the right is what I'm looking for. I click it one time, boom. Now there's the second one. But actually, now these three, and I just clicked and selected them again, I need to indent them twice. There we go. Got my third order level. And second thing, third sometimes. Perfect. This is exactly how I recreated that same list based on having unformatted text versus going through from the very beginning. So several ways that you can accomplish the same thing. Now, as we get more into the details, I'm going to go ahead and change this first order, and I want it to be something a bit more common, like numbers. Okay, so now it's a little bit smaller, easier to read. So let's also say, I want the spacing is a little unusual for me. So now when I select this, it's selecting the same level at a time. Now notice after I select this, look up at the ruler. Look right here. You've got this top caret, which is the first line indent, and there's two more pieces. This hanging indent, and the piece below it is the left indent. So these are the three things that govern the spacing of where things start and finish or overlap on the page. This applies to everything, not just lists. So in this area, they're all at the very beginning, the origin of the margin. Now for the ordered list, it's indented slightly. So the first line begins here, and everything, so let's say I want to add some lipsum here. So I'm going to go equals lorem, and I'm going to add one paragraph. Press enter. I guess it doesn't work on every part of the page, but anyway, I wanted to add some more text just because I want the paragraph to be much, much longer. So I'm just going to duplicate this. Control C, add it to this line here, Control V. There it is, first thing. Oh, well, funny enough, it took it out of the menu. So or out of the list, how do I put it back in? Well, I can also just select it and move it back. So in this case, I've selected it. I'm going to click and I'm going to drag. Now notice the cursor has a little box with it. That means I'm carrying whatever I just selected. Now I've put the cursor where I want to drop it, and I'm just going to drop by unselecting or letting my finger go from the cursor, from the mouse. Oh, missed that. So click and drag, put it there. Now I'm confused. So if we press over, we got that. And if we go up one, it's still there. I want to show you 5 things. If we add this to the ordered list, that's another way to get it back in. There we go. And for whatever reason, not everything is super conducive. And even I have issues. So again, when something doesn't work one way, you might have to look again and figure out how to redo it. I have a feeling my error was actually selecting pre-formatted text earlier in the document. And when you do so, it will bring with it all of the formatting for this text. This text here does not come from a numbered list. So when I put that into this line with first thing, that should be the first thing on the item, on the itemized or numbered list, it turned it back into a paragraph. So that is something you need to watch out for. Okay, so now we've got this first line in the ordered list. I've double-clicked the entire paragraph. You can see what's going on. All right. Now I want to adjust where this goes. I want all of this to start at the beginning of the paragraph. There we go. And I want my hanging indent to be elsewhere. So my hanging indent notice how when you click on one or the other, they will adjust themselves accordingly. So I'm doing the first part here. Now, if I go up here, for example, and I want to edit the same sentence, and I want the indent to be elsewhere, click the bottom side. I'm going to press undo, but you can click the bottom side to only, oops, there we go. So sometimes when they're together like this, they get locked. And you may have to unlock them by moving the top one off before you can adjust where the remainder will be. So that's how you create space by having a prominent first line and indented lines thereafter. Okay, and yes, copying and pasting without format, reading the chat here again. That's exactly how I could have fixed this whole issue earlier, is pasting without format. So thank you. I should take my own advice. All right. So does that answer anyone's questions when it comes to how to deal with lists in Microsoft Word? how to use the box with the right angle left to the ruler. So this guy right here, this little 90-degree piece, this is actually a tab. So anytime you click on the ruler, you can add a tab point. So for example, if you're writing a lot, and let's go up here where the text is still normal. And if I am right, oh, notice that the tabs went away. So let's say I want to put the tab to 1 inch, 1 inch, and 2 inch marks. So I can start here, press the tab button, and it goes to where I put the little angle. And then I can go here and press tab again and end here. So that way I can have predefined points on every beginning, middle, and end of begging. No, I meant beginning. Oop, I pressed tab too many times. Let's go back once, remove that tab for the beginning, middle, and end. And so that is how tabs work. And this is an easy way to get nice, complete formatting, but this is not a good way to actually build a table in a document. And that's actually something that makes a really good segue for something that we can learn another time, because you can actually add tables. So insert a table, and we can literally draw how big we want. So I need a 2 by 3. I have 6 here. And I'm sorry, why does it rotate? I'm not sure why it rotates. What you're referring to rotation. Okay. All right, so in the case of a good way to organize more information is actually in a table just like this. So remember to add this table to a document, you actually insert the table. But now when I'm inside a table, I get more contextual menus that didn't appear before. And in this case, I have many different things for tables. And once we get into Excel, this will make a lot more sense. But for Microsoft Word, this is just a good way to organize information on a page in a very structured way. So instead of using tabs to create different points where things begin and end, we would actually want to use a table. And in doing so, we can create the beginning, the middle, and I press tab to go between the cells. And then I'm going to press enter and notice that it goes to a new line inside the same cell. Yes, these are called cells. Now, when I want to go to the next cell or the next row, sometimes it's easier just to use your mouse. All right, now we've got these little handles right here. We can actually move this entire table anywhere in the document, just like before. So in this case, we can also resize the cell, and I think that looks pretty bad. I need to move it somewhere else, and I need to zoom out so I can see where I need to put it. Let's make sure to put it after this area right here. Now, notice that it doesn't go exactly where I drop it. It's a bit frustrating. And that's because after you drop it, it already has to figure out how the page needs to move. But anyway, this is the best way to format information when you need it to be very structured. And every cell can be set up so that it gets their very own formatting. And it's quite convenient for ways to prepare complicated documents. And let's see. The other thing is you don't always need to see the edge lines. So in that case, you can either use the pre-formatting like this, or we can do border styles, and I want to reduce them to 0. The borders, and I want 0 borders. So in this case, there is no border. Boom. So now, if I print this, you will never see where the cells begin or end. But you guys have been absolutely wonderful today, and I want to ask if there is any questions. I have a couple more minutes, but you guys, I hope that something has come out of your Word tutorial or workshop today, because I'm here to help you learn. And next class is Thursday, same time, same place. I think I'm going to change the method of our session so that it's considered a more of a presentation than a meeting. But I will have just the same controls. Thank you, Catherine. I appreciate you being here. And if anyone else has any specific questions, I will be happy to linger afterwards just now and address them specifically for you. But you guys have been absolutely wonderful, and I hope this has been a learning experience for you all. So if there's anything else, please ask me now, and I'll be happy to answer one-on-one, as well as unmute the microphone. You can go ahead and talk to me about it, but I'll give you guys another 15 minutes and we'll call it a day. But if you have to go, I understand. You've been wonderful, and have a great evening. So does anyone have any other questions? Yes, you will be able to review this. My counterpart at the HBC, her name is Maria Sharp. Maria is my my tech support backend. She will be taking this recording and making it available, I believe. How exactly, I don't know, but I know that you should keep an eye on your email. Your email will be the point where a link to watch this training again will appear. There's also a big thing that I realized I missed, and that is saving. If you haven't learned how to save a document, it's something that you should do early and often. And Tracy, thank you. I'm glad you did. Lashawanda, thank you very much. You are most welcome. Waleska, yes. We will definitely have 3 more of these meetings. We'll cover 4 more pieces of software. And I'm very pleased to say that these, although small in size, these computers are absolutely wonderful. So if you're using them, I think it'll work great for all of you. When you click it, we're still upside down T. So that's a different type of tab. So if you hover over it, so that's the left tab, that's the right tab, and that's the middle. That's home. So what's happening here? So when I select this text right here, this changes between left tab, the middle tab, center tab, right tab, and let's see what this one says. I forget this one, the decimal tab. Like in your numbered lists, and you click it again, and it changes. Let's see, what does it say? The bar tab, this is for when you actually have bars. And this is the hanging indent, first line indent. So when this is selected, and if I click on here, click on the numbers, it will actually just move it. Now that was the first line. So that way we can select what we're adjusting. The hanging indent is adjusted by clicking. I'm not dragging. Normally, if I click and it said something else, like a left tab, I'm adding left tabs. I hope that was helpful. Most people don't need to use that. So if you're using that, you are definitely considered a power user. Still have 8 of you on. This is wonderful. If there are any other questions I can answer, please go ahead and ask away. So I'm going to save this and I'm going to press up and I'm going to put this in my documents. That's where I am. And let's just call this document the dummy text letter. And I'm going to press return. It's going to save it on this computer. And now it's here and it says saved. Yes, Lamar, there is a table for contents for Word. Now I'm going to go to a different document to show you how that gets set up. Let's go to a really long one. This is now 4 pages long. In order for a table of contents to work, you need to tell Word what your headings are. So for example, we already have a main title. Let's pick this one right here. We need to give this one a new section title, essentially. We can do this in, I think it's not layout, sorry, design. We don't really need to change a theme, but sometimes different themes have different setups. So if you go to home, you go to styles, and we look here, we need to call this a, let's call that heading 1. And we're going to create a couple headings. And once you have more than one heading, and let's create another one, select heading 1, and we're going to make, we're just going to pull this off and call this heading 2, so we can see what that does. All right, now for table of contents, sometimes it's easier to start here. Table of contents. Well, if I click it, it says automatically built-in table. Now, it is actually built in. So if we can also find it going to the insert tab, I believe, actually I'm blanking on exactly where this is found, but it would not be here. There it is. References, table of contents. Not exactly the most intuitive place even for me. So table of contents, we want to add the table of contents. In this case, it's pretty easy to use one of the built-in automatic setups. And let's just say clicking that. Now I'm going to add this right here in this empty space. So table of contents, can add the automatically built-in table. I'm just going to click it. Now it added it exactly where my cursor was. Okay, so now I'm going to zoom out so I can see more because I have a bunch on my screen. All right, so now everything is set up so that we have those as our sections. And in fact, we can collapse these sections. And you know what? We need to add a couple more. All right, so now that we've got a couple more on another page, we go back up to contents. And if we hover over it, it says update table. Update page, update entire table, choose what we want, press OK. Boom, automatically finds the pages for everything they're on and creates it in a perfectly wide section just in our area. Now you can also edit the contents of this box. This is edited kind of like a table is edited because it essentially is. You'll never want to actually go in and change these items directly here. Like you don't want to go in and retype this. Now notice what I'm hovering over here. It says control click to follow link. This works just like links on the web. So literally, if I hover over, let me go to the last one here. It would help if I wrote this in English because then I could understand what we're attempting. But if I press and hold the control button, notice the cursor changes to a web style cursor clicker. So I'm going to click it. Cursor, click, boom, moves my cursor right to that section in the document. And sometimes you might place the table of contents on its own page. So in this case, I'm just going to keep my cursor. Now in this, I can actually write table of contents. I can customize it. Now, even though I can put my cursor in there, I don't really want to change the text because then I could lose the automation part. Now, we can also change the style this way and move that. All right, so in this case, table of contents, let's add it to its own page. So in this case, insert page break, boom. And then we need another page break at the end. So pages, page break. So now we have our own table of contents on its own page. But we need to update it because now the numbers are all wrong. So we hover over, update table, update entire table. Okay. Boom, now everything's on page 3. All right, Lamar, was that helpful? Great. How do we export? Will those hyperlinks remaining or will they change automatically? All right, so those hyperlinks only work inside the document itself. So if you save the file as a docx file, a modern Microsoft Word file, and you send it to somebody else for editing, yes, they'll be able to click those links within the document when they open it inside Microsoft Office. Those links don't carry over to older versions of Microsoft Word. And there are other ways that you can save file types that will include them. I do believe that those types of inside the inter-document linking will be retained if you even save it as a PDF. That's a relatively new feature of the past couple of years. I personally even haven't used it very often. But yes, you can create a table of contents, and then save it as a PDF, and the PDF should have clickable links in it as well. Any other questions? One more minute. All right. Well, once again, thank you everyone for participating. Thank you for your questions. And I look forward to doing this with all of you again on Thursday. And we'll all get closer to being more productive and getting through our work on the computer, especially with Microsoft Office, with less headaches and more aha moments. So I look forward to it again, and take care, everyone. Stay safe and healthy out there, and enjoy these new machines. Right. Take care. Bye-bye.